Aya Nakamura had always dreamed of becoming a teacher. Growing up in the bustling heart of Tokyo, she was raised with a deep respect for education, instilled by her own teachers who guided her with kindness and discipline. After years of studying, she had finally earned her teaching degree. When the opportunity arose to teach abroad, she seized it immediately. It was a small high school in a coastal town in Japan, far from the busy streets she was used to, and the challenge excited her. On her first day, Aya stood in front of her classroom, heart pounding but her face calm. She had prepared meticulously, her lesson plans perfect, her materials ready. But nothing could have prepared her for the reality she was about to face. The students entered slowly, taking their seats with a mixture of curiosity and indifference. Aya noticed a few quiet smiles, but many of the students had a different energy, an edge to them, a restlessness that reminded her of Tokyo's rush-hour commuters. In the back row, a group of boys whispered among themselves, shooting her sidelong glances and snickering. She chose to ignore it for now, hoping her lesson would eventually engage them. Aya began her introduction, sharing a bit about herself, her passion for literature, and what she hoped they would all accomplish together. But her words were met with blank stares. It wasn't long before the interruption started. A chair scraped loudly against the floor, followed by muffled laughter. One student in the back pretended to fall asleep, dramatically resting his head on his desk and snoring. Others began talking over her, as if she wasn't even there. Aya paused, her smile faltering. This was not how she had imagined her first day. The respect she had always been taught to give to her teachers was nowhere to be found here. For the next few weeks, things did not improve. Some students skipped class altogether, while others came in with defiant attitudes. Aya had tried her best to engage them with different teaching methods, but nothing seemed to work. The group of boys in the back, led by a particularly rebellious student named Ryota, were the worst offenders. They mocked her lessons, disrupted the class, and made it difficult for the students who actually wanted to learn. It wasn't just Ryota and his friends, though. Aya could see the subtle signs of disengagement from other students too, eyes that drifted out the window, hands that scribbled in notebooks with no regard for her lessons. There was a pervasive sense of disillusionment in the room, and Aya couldn't help but wonder what had happened to make these students feel this way. One afternoon, after yet another difficult lesson, Aya sat in the staff room, feeling defeated. She overheard a conversation between two other teachers. They were talking about Ryota and his friends, how they had been troublemakers for years, and how no teacher had been able to get through to them. "That boy has no respect for anyone," one of the teachers said. "His father is never around, and his mother, well, she gave up on him a long time ago." Aya's heart sank. She knew that if she didn't do something soon, Ryota and the others would only continue down this path of resistance and failure. But she also understood that punishing them or treating them with the same indifference they showed her wasn't the answer. She needed a plan. That night, Aya sat at her desk, thinking about her students. She remembered the lessons her own teachers had taught her, not just about literature but about life. They had never given up on her, even when she struggled. They had pushed her to be better, to believe in herself. And now it was her turn to do the same for her students, no matter how difficult they were. The next day, Aya walked into her classroom with renewed determination. She greeted her students as usual, but this time, instead of starting with a lesson, she pulled out a blank piece of paper and placed it on her desk. "Today," she said, "we're not going to have a normal lesson. I want you all to write down one thing, just one thing that you care about. Can be anything. Something that makes you happy, something that makes you sad, something you think about a lot." The students looked at her confused. A few of them exchanged glances, but slowly they began to write. Ryota and his friends were reluctant, but eventually, even they scribbled something down. After a few minutes, Aya collected the papers. She didn't read them aloud or ask the students to share. Instead, she simply thanked them and moved on to the lesson. But something had shifted in the room. The students were still restless, still resistant, but Aya had their attention, if only for a moment. Over the next few weeks, Aya continued to implement small changes in her teaching approach. She incorporated more group discussions, allowing the students to share their thoughts and ideas freely. She introduced creative projects that gave them the opportunity to express themselves in ways that traditional lessons didn't allow. And she made a point to speak to each student individually, even Ryota and his friends, asking them about their interests, their lives outside of school. It wasn't easy. Ryota remained defiant, and his friends continued to test her patience. But Aya was persistent. She refused to give up on them no matter how difficult they made it. One day, after a particularly challenging lesson, Ryota stayed behind after class. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, shuffling his feet. "What is it, Ryota?" I asked gently. "I don't get why you care so much," he muttered, not meeting her eyes. "We're just a bunch of losers. No one else cares." Aya looked at him, her heart aching for the boy in front of her. She knew that Ryota wasn't a bad person, just a boy who had been let down too many times by the people who were supposed to care for him. "I care because I believe you're capable of more than you think," she said softly. "You're not a loser, Ryota. You just need someone to believe in you." Ryota didn't respond, but something in his expression shifted. It was a small change, barely noticeable, but Aya knew she had finally reached him. From that day on, things began to improve. Ryota and his friends still had their moments of defiance, but they were less frequent. Aya continued to work with them, encouraging them, pushing them to see their own potential. Slowly but surely, the classroom atmosphere began to change. The students were more engaged, more willing to participate. Even Ryota started turning in his assignments, though he never admitted that he enjoyed the lessons. By the end of the school year, Aya's class had transformed. The students who once saw school as a burden now approached their lessons with curiosity and enthusiasm. Ryota, once the ringleader of trouble, had become one of the most improved students in the class. On the last day of school, Ryota approached Aya as the students were leaving. He handed her a small, crumpled note before quickly walking away. Aya unfolded it, her eyes scanning the messy handwriting. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Aya smiled, tucking the note into her pocket. It hadn't been an easy journey, but she had done what she set out to do. She had made a difference, and that was all she had ever wanted.